Hello, everyone. It's the 4th of February 2022, and you're watching the Against Vaccine Passports YouTube channel. We've done interviews with individuals from Lithuania and Ireland on the vaccine passport issue, and we're about to speak to Sebastian Walter Rivera. He's a web and app site designer. He's 38 years old. He's got twins who are 2 years old. It's 10 p.m. where he is. It's 11 a.m. here. Thank you very much for staying up. I'm sure you're ready for bed soon. 8 years ago, you moved to Australia. Your wife is Scottish, but you moved from Spain. You're originally German, so you know Europe very well. You moved to Australia for a life that you thought would be exciting and safe to start a family. And we're going to be talking about what life really is like, whether your dreams have been fulfilled of that wonderful life that you were hoping to have in Melbourne, Australia. So a couple of things I just want to mention. Our website, against-vaccinepassports.com, is still running, but we do rely on donations. We have the map search, which is expensive, and some staff to pay. So if you want us to keep going, we've rebranded as AVP Remain Free, but we can see the vaccine passport is still a very important issue for the rest of the world. And we're not quite sure where this is heading for the UK, but certainly it's very important for me as a mother and as a compassionate and courageous citizen to listen to people like yourself, Sebastian, who are struggling in other parts of the world. And there are people that really care and want to help you guys in Australia as much as we can. We're going to be talking about some organisations that you have used, really, that have been a bit of a lifesaver for you. And it's very interesting. They're very similar to the ones in the UK. So there's one, for example, called Parents with Questions. That's very, very similar to Us for Them, which we've got here. You've got another one called Know Your Rights Group, which sounds like Save Our Rights UK. It's so interesting to see the similar names. And then Reignite Democracy Australia is a bit like Against Vaccine Passports. You've got a business directory. So it's interesting how the human spirits and the society gets these particular organisations together with a similar kind of focus and theme. But we are in a different position to you. We're not quite sure what's happening with Boris Johnson, but I have to say, here in the UK, we're all breathing a sigh of relief. It feels like we've come out the other end, but we don't really know what's going on in Australia. And there's been a failure, I think, in media brands to really report on what life is like there for you guys. So I'm, honoured to be in a position to be able to speak to you to get a grasp of that. So first of all, why did you agree to do this? What message do you want to get across today when we talk?
Well, I guess there's two messages. One would be, to the world, if you want, which is to make people aware of what's actually going on in Australia and to maintain vigilant, I guess. I know the UK England lifted all the restrictions, but you never know. I feel like there's always a plan B. So celebrate, but be vigilant. And on the other side, I hope that Australians tune in and realize what's going on, because a lot of people I talk to here don't even listen to the news anymore, don't know what's going on, don't know, all the COVID related stuff. They're tired of it. So what I'm hoping is that by watching this, they get aware of it, essentially.
So let's talk about what life is like for you. So let's talk about masks, lockdown, vaccine passports. What's the situation there?
So we still have the segregated society in Melbourne. So all I'm saying right now is specifically for Victoria, the state I'm in Melbourne. Every state in Australia has a bit of its own flavor of tyranny, if you want. Western Australia does different things. The Northern Territories, New South Wales, which is Sydney and the area, seems a bit more open. But Melbourne, everything you watch, I guess, in the news, from the shocking images from Australia, that's mainly Australia, that's mainly Victoria. All the police brutality, all that stuff, and that comes from here basically. So our Premier Daniel Andrews has a particular flavor of my way or the highway, to say bluntly.
Well, it's like you said, each state has its own flavour of tyranny. Would you call him a dictator? How is he controlling your life?
And well, we call him Dictator Dan. So I can go into the permanent pandemic bill in a bit, which was passed in December, which basically gives him absolute power. No oversight, nothing. He can do whatever he wants, basically. He doesn't have to respond to anyone anymore. That happened in December. But he actually, I mean, you've all seen the Djokovic, scandal, I guess, with the Australian Open. So that seems to me, while all that was going on, they mandated the third dose for a lot of industries, and that flew under the radar. And that before that, they were still talking about, oh, we're all in this together, and vaccines save lives and all that stuff. And now the message is basically, we're mandating this. I know it's not pretty, but you know what? We can do it. So mandates got us where we are, and we keep doing it. So they're not even hiding anymore that they're basically just mandating these vaccines on people on the threat of losing your job, losing, basically being excluded from society. So I guess what that means in terms of the day-to-day. So if you're not vaccinated or you're not double vaccinated at the moment, they're considering, or they're discussing really that 3 doses will be fully vaccinated. He's really pushing hard for it. Means you can go basically to retail shops, your GP, and that's about it.
So let's get this clear then. If you are unvaccinated and you live in Victoria, you can go to the doctors, and you can go to retail. Yes. So explain
any
what
shop
you mean.
You want, like clothing, the supermarket, obviously, any sort of shop. Yes.
Can you go to the hospital? Can you go to the hospital?
Yes.
Yes, so you can go to the doctors, you can buy clothes and food. So you can't go to restaurants, pubs, cafes, cinema, theatre.
No, I mean takeaway, but
what about school? Can children go to school?
They can, but they have to, because they couldn't mandate vaccinations on children. So they have to, I think, do a rat test twice a week or something. At the moment, God knows if that's going to change. At the moment, it's 2 rat tests a week for children.
What's a test? Sorry, a rat test. What's that?
Oh, sorry, a rapid antigen test. So every single.
Do they do it at home or do they do it at school?
No, you do it at home, and then if it's.
And do they have to wear masks in school?
Yes.
They do. What age do they have to wear masks?
I think it's. I'm not exactly sure, but I think it's from 8 or 9 years on or something.
Put it in the comments, guys. Anyone living there, can you put it in the comments? People will be watching and will know. We need to check that out. Okay, that's really good for us to understand that. So if you're unvaccinated, can you go to work? What industry? So can teachers work? No. What's mandated in terms of employment?
So what's mandated, as in you need to be vaccinated, is pretty much anything that's not a office worker. Basically, teachers, healthcare, aged care, construction, supermarkets, supply chain. I don't know, they amended so much stuff, so they came out basically when that happened.
You have to be vaccinated. So what, you lose your job, do you? If you're not vaccinated in those industries, you just lose your job.
That's correct. Now, as an office worker, you cannot go to your office. You have to work from home. You're not allowed in an office. So you can still work, but you're not allowed to actually enter the premises.
And what I would say is, here in Europe, a lot of countries are coming out of this, but that's not happening where you are. Is that right? Is there no sign of it all ending soon?
It feels a bit like they're doubling down on the opposite, actually. So as I mentioned, England is lifting all the restrictions. The Victorian government mandates the 3rd dose.
So they're bringing in the booster they're bringing in, so the double vaccinated may have to get the booster as well to operate in society in the way you've just mentioned. And is it a COVID pass? What is it called? Is it on your mobile? What are people having? How are people proving that they've got that status to go to a cafe or restaurant or pub, etc.?
So there's an app called Service Victoria, which is, the official app, I guess. So also, apart from the passport, which is on the app, you also have to check in anywhere. So say you go to a restaurant, a supermarket, a shop, and there's a QR code, you scan it and you say, okay, I've been here to do contact tracing. Now, the funny thing is they stopped doing contact tracing, but these QR codes are still up. And I've seen quite a few people still scanning in, which doesn't make any sense anymore. Even the government admits that, they're not doing anything anymore. But that same app is basically proof of your vaccination status.
You were saying in a meeting, you were saying in a meeting that they're even on outdoor parks. Is that right? I've got to explain that.
It sounds a bit strange for someone who doesn't live here, but at some point they closed the playgrounds, like outdoor playgrounds. So they were closed for like 2 weeks or something, and then they reopened them and they said, oh, now it's safe because we put QR codes on. So basically any parent who would go to a playground with their children scans the QR code, checks in at an outdoor park. Because
you've got 2 children who are 2, they're important. So when did they close the playgrounds, just out of interest? Because we had that ages ago.
Yeah, that must have been in October or November or something. I can't remember.
Okay, but they reopened it with the QR code. Do people actually do it though? Because a lots of checking in sort of things you can do. Do people actually use that when they go to the parks, or do they just ignore it?
Most people would ignore it, but there's still a few people who would do it. So
give us a tone of the media, of the community. If you're unvaccinated, do people dislike you? Are you shunned by your friends? And do people understand? Are they sympathetic? I mean, it's difficult for you because you're probably talking from your own personal experience and your family, friends, etc. work. So, for example, if you're unvaccinated, are people sympathetic and understanding, but they dislike what's going on? Or are people like, you just get vaccinated, come on, we need to move forward?
Yeah, I think most people are, whether we're vaccinated or not doesn't matter. Like, we're still humans, right? Obviously, you get the extremes, and then the media is pushing really towards get vaccinated. And I'm pretty sure you have that in the UK as well, like these articles, should I invite my unvaccinated parents to Christmas dinners or stuff like that, right? So that's in the media going on. But apart from that, from what I've seen, most people don't really care if you're vaccinated or not. Like, it's just you're another human, and move on.
Are they fighting against it? So I'm vaccinated, I'm in a cafe, and the unvaccinated aren't allowed in. Do the vaccinated get annoyed? Do they think, what are we doing? This, are they upset?
I think they, like, in general, people think it's a bit strange, but then they get along with it. So I haven't seen a situation where you would sit in a restaurant and an unvaccinated person gets, rejected. But most people seem to, silently think it's weird, but get along with it. Now, the problem with Australia as well is Australia never had any problems. As in big problems, even during the financial crisis, there wasn't much crisis in Australia. So I think people are not used to conflict in this country, and especially in Victoria, they call it the nanny state. So the government is basically the big brother, like looking after you. When I come from Europe, in Europe, it feels a bit like, let's apply common sense to things. Whereas here, I give an example. In a building, you go down like the stairs, and on the railing, it would say in big signs on every single floor. We're talking about like 35 floors. Hold on to the railing because you might fall if you don't. Now, I know that's common sense, and in Europe, no one would dare to do that, but that's how they do it in Victoria, which means it's very nannied. So people are just, I guess, in the mindset of
And
just
it's
follow
always been
whatever.
like that since you arrived 8 years
Yeah,
ago. It was
exactly.
like,
Which
okay,
was
so
never
it's a
a
different
problem
feel.
until this thing happened, right? So, yeah.
This is really interesting. I'm just a bit confused. I used to watch Neighbours. That's when Neighbours was filmed, wasn't it? Melbourne.
I can't
So,
comment on it. I've never watched it, so
well,
sorry.
we've got a close relationship. There's a close relationship between the UK and Australia. And, I did an interview with Ireland, a lady in Ireland, and I also did another video with a woman. It went viral because she wasn't allowed into the restaurant. She was allowed to sit outside. She tried to go in, and they said no. A dog ran in. No, you can't come in. But they've dropped it in Ireland now, and obviously there's no mandation for NHS staff here in England. So you must be thinking in Melbourne, why is that going on in the UK, but we're still living like this? How are you feeling about that? Watching kind of everyone move away from all of this, but you're still in it. Does that, and the other question I need to ask is, are you going to leave? What is there an end to this? If you're not happy with it?
Yeah. So to the first question, yeah, you're watching this and you feel like, oh God, are we like the forgotten bit of the world or something, right? Look, again, I don't know if there's another plan in the UK or in all these other countries that brings it into the back door or something. I don't know. But yeah, you're watching it and you feel like, why not us? And our politicians come out every day giving speeches about how dangerous Omicron is and the healthcare system is overflowing and it doesn't make any sense. I know it doesn't make sense what they're saying. And yet still they keep going because I think big part is most of the people are unaware that, the COVID measures we're taking are not in line with what's going on in the world. And in terms of the future, leaving the country, there are a couple of elections coming up. So there's the federal election in May, I think. And then the state election in November, which, my hope is that that'll shape up shift things a bit. But yeah.
You're hanging on basically to see if there's a change in leadership and see if those conversations you have amongst the citizens of Victoria are actually going to be reflected in the ballot box. Are they going to vote in a new political system? That's what you're saving. You're staying around for. Who are the big new political parties, or are any of the established political parties taking more of a freedom?
Well, the established parties are the state party has a new leader who seemed to be a bit more having a stand on things, and he's against all these mandates and all that stuff, so that's good. As for national leadership, the Prime Minister Scott Morrison is he's referred to Scotty from marketing. He talks a lot but he never delivers. So that party is the opposite of what's governing Victoria, and they seem to be pretty much in line with the messaging. So it seems in Australia that both big parties, do not care too much. Now there's smaller parties emerging, especially in Victoria. There's a big move. I think I read the other day that 30% of people are actually considering voting for minor parties. One of them being the Liberal Democrats, for example. There's one particular member of parliament, David Limbrick, who's very outspoken against passports, mandates and all that stuff. And he's gathered quite a following based on that. So there's minor parties getting more traction, but how that is going to look like at the elections, I don't know.
It needs people need time to organise themselves. I know here in Wales, a lot of people were very unhappy with the lockdown and the decisions on health and education system from the First Minister here in Wales in the UK, but they had like 3 months to establish new political parties and to generate interest. And I think it's the same with media brands, political brands. They've been around a lot of time. People feel safe with them. It's very difficult to build that trust, a relationship of trust with the public very quickly as a new political brand. we've got the Liberal Democrats here speaking out against vaccine passports, for example, and they're an established party, very small one. It's interesting to see what happens because, Justin Trudeau in Canada was voted in, I believe, last September, but yet people are now protesting in Ottawa with this big Canadian truck, but you have to accept if you voted for that person, the majority have voted for that person, you have to engage in the society's rules, even if they make no sense, or leave. So I presume you may consider leaving. I know there's a lot of people leaving in different parts of America. Maybe people are coming to the UK now or England because they want to live. If they are unvaccinated, they want to go to the cinema and go for a meal. And maybe they don't want to live like that anymore. So that's a very clear option, isn't it? You get a new political leader or you leave.
Pretty much, and it's not about being unvaccinated or not. It's the prospect of we're going to mandate, injections on you. Like they actually hinted the other day, whether it be the 4th, 5, 6, if that's what the experts say, then we keep doing it. That's a statement from our premier. And whether you're vaccinated or not, like, do you want to live in a state where they mandate vaccines on you, like indefinitely?
I thought Australia had some kind of vaccine mandates before all of this. Is that not the case?
Yeah, they had it for certain things. I think the measles and a few other things, but nothing of this scale, as in, you either get vaccinated or you can participate in society. And what happens if I refuse the 4th or 5th shot? Am I excluded from society? So on the long run, yeah, I wouldn't want to live in a state like that. So options are on the table for sure. So
how are people communicating with each other? What communities have you got? Because here in the UK, there are things like Stand in the Park and, as I've mentioned, Save Our Rights UK and Rebels on Roundabouts. There's lots of movements. Have you got communities? Have the unvaccinated got communities in which they can support each other, and maybe these give some power and to these new political parties? How do you communicate?
It's not so much the unvaccinated. It's more like people, I say, against mandates and
mandates and passports. Yeah,
because Australia, the official numbers say 95% are vaccinated, so, or 93 or something. So there's not many unvaccinated people left, anyways.
But I should imagine there's lots of people that may not want the booster. That certainly happened here in England. Yeah. Lots of people are double vaccinated but don't want the booster. So you've gone from maybe 6 million in the UK that are unvaccinated to maybe 20 million that won't have the booster. So it's quite a big pool of people. And that pool of people may be looking at their leadership and thinking, I don't really like this segregated society, this divided society where the unvaccinated aren't allowed to. So your pool of people, is it organized? I mean, you've got these organizations, which I've mentioned. Are they growing? Are they organized? Are you allowed to go to events? There's mention of events here. Is that how would you go to a community event? You're obviously allowed to meet in each other's homes, or
as long as it's outdoors, in a park or something, there's no limitations. It really comes down to organized stuff, right? So organized events, organized, or restaurants, weddings, whatever it is. So anything where you would put some sort of effort to organize it into, in a venue that's restricted, but anywhere in public space, to say in a broader picture, is pretty much you can do whatever you want. So
you have to meet outside. You can't meet indoors anywhere then if you were in a community of against passports and mandates.
Well, I guess you could do a flash mob in a shopping mall, but you can't book a venue and organize an event. No, that's not possible. Yeah.
And how important has sort of other new media brands? People call it alternative media. How important has that been? Has that been growing?
It's definitely growing. Now, again, how many people are actually aware of it in the broader community? I don't think it's too many people, because Australian media is very small, and it's not like other countries like the UK, for example, where you have like different voices. So if you watch, for example, GB News, it's very different to the BBC, right? Australia seems to be all the same message. So it's really hard if you're not actively seeking it to find, voices that are challenging anything really.
The mandates and the passports. So voices that are challenging. So who would you recommend then in terms of media challenging the mandates and passports?
Which media channels? Look, it's nothing mainstream, to be honest. Sky News, which is murdered media, is the only one that, occasionally has a bit of a different viewpoint, but then, to what extent that's their own agenda, I don't know. Apart from that, it's really individuals, really. So Avi Yemini from Rebel News. Rebel News is like this Canadian outlet. So he's reporting, on the ground, if you want. There's this one guy, Real Rukshan, who reported on the Melbourne protests, just being amongst the crowd and then just saying as it is. But as in media outlets, as in media channels, I couldn't name one, to be honest.
It's very, very important, I think. And if you're a political brand, especially a new political brand, you need to be able to communicate in a professional way and grow your audience. And I know the big problem we've had, Sebastian, is not really understanding what's going on in Victoria, because it's like you see stuff on Twitter from citizen journalists or small accounts, and you think, well, a lot of stuff is shared and it's out of date, or it's inaccurate, and you just don't feel that you can trust it. I hope people watching this, with the fact that I'm a professional journalist, having worked for the BBC and ITV, speaking to you today on the 4th of February, this really is happening. This really is happening where you are right now. People need to be aware of that, and I think they really need to wake up, and we want to help you in any way we can. And I think the media has played a big role in our, and a lot of campaign groups here, lots and lots of incredible people speaking out. The interviews I've done with senior journalists, and it's just woken more people up, I think, to be united in fighting for freedom, for choice. And it is remarkable what's going on for you guys there. Anything you'd like to add before I finish, and how we can help here in the UK? Because I think people will be wanting to think, how can we help?
Spread the word. There was a campaign actually where around the world, I think it was the 4th of December or something, people were demonstrating in front of Australian embassies. Anything that puts pressure on the Australian government is of help, because from what I can see, we're incapable of doing it ourselves. That sounds a bit sad, but I think the numbers are too small to actually make a difference at this stage. There was a big movement in Melbourne during the pandemic bill. So what happened is the Victorian government proposed a new permanent pandemic bill, which actually passed. And that bill is specific to pandemics. So at the moment, or before that, it was linked to the emergency bill, which means any emergency is the same measures, right? So they said, oh, we need something specific for pandemics, and that bill, as I said, it basically gives the Premier absolute power to rule with decree. There was a 20-hour non-stop debate in Parliament debating that bill before it passed. So the members were sitting for 20 hours straight debating it, trying amendments, whatever. In the end, it passed, but there was 4 weeks of constant demonstrations, people camping outside of Parliament, and it got all the way up to, well, the numbers differ a bit, like say anywhere between 300,000 and 700,000 people demonstrating on the streets against this bill. So that's my hope, that we get this momentum again. So 700,000 people in a state of 6 million is quite significant. So my hope is to get back to that and actually, force the government to change stuff.
Well, we wish you all the best of luck. There is a huge pull there. There is a tipping point. And I would ask anyone watching this to please feel free to screen record, take clips, and share it widely so people can really understand what's happening. On the 4th of February 2022 in Victoria in Australia. Shocking. Yeah, we wish you all the best. And thank you very much for talking to me. Is there anything else you'd like to add?
No, thanks for having me.
You're welcome. Well, I'll try and put this on YouTube, but we've had some issues with YouTube in the past, but we'll see what happens. We'll certainly get it out there. You take care then, and we'll stay in touch. Let us know how you get on and if you need any further help.
Thanks.
All the best. Bye.
Yes. Bye.